"You're late," my dad grumbled the moment he opened the front door, dragging his suitcase behind him. I glanced down at the clock on my dashboard. 7:58 a.m. "I said 8, I replied, forcing a smile as I stepped out of the car. Right on time. But then, I saw him. Standing there at the edge of the driveway, arms crossed over his chest, a backpack slung lazily over one shoulder. My brother, Daniel. My stomach twisted. Why is he here? Daniel had no job, no responsibilities, no obligations except maybe keeping his Xbox warm. He wasn't supposed to be here. This cruise was meant for me and my parents. Something I'd been planning for nearly 2 years. Something I'd paid for. Every single penny. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, even though my heartbeat had just doubled. My mom walked out next, wearing her wide-brimmed sun hat and an overly bright smile that instantly felt fake. "Oh, Mandy," she said, waving her hand like I was being dramatic. "We decided Daniel should come, instead of you." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. "Instead of me?" I repeated slowly, almost not believing what I just heard. "Are you kidding? This cruise is... I booked this. For you. For your anniversary. For us." Dad shrugged, adjusting his sunglasses like this was some kind of inconvenience he didn't want to deal with. "Daniel's been stressed lately," he said casually. "Life's been rough on him. He needs some rest." Mom chimed in, nodding as though that explained everything. I blinked. Stunned, frozen, completely blindsided. Daniel? Stressed? From what? Leveling up in video games? Sleeping till noon? Living rent-free under their roof while I worked 60-hour weeks to afford this cruise? Daniel smirked, kicking a pebble with his shoe. "Yeah, appreciate you understanding, sis." His voice was laced with that familiar smugness I'd hated since we were kids. "Been feeling kind of burned out, you know?" I stared at him, then at my parents. My lips parted, but no words came out. Because what could I possibly say? I had spent 2 years planning this. 2 years of overtime, canceled weekends, skipped vacations, all to give my parents something unforgettable. A luxurious cruise down the Panama Canal. Balcony suites, private shore excursions, gourmet dinners, a once-in-a-lifetime trip. And they replaced me. Like I was an afterthought. "You're serious?" My voice was barely above a whisper. Dad sighed, clearly getting impatient. "Let's not make this a big thing, Mandy. You know how much Daniel's been struggling. He could really use a break. And you're always busy anyway. Work, work, work. You can take a vacation another time." Another time? This was the time. I clenched my jaw, biting back every furious word rising to my throat. Because if I let even one out, the floodgates would burst. Instead, I nodded stiffly. "Right." My voice was flat. "Of course." Daniel walked past me, dumped his bag into the trunk of my car, and grinned. "Thanks for driving, by the way." Real MVP, I didn't respond. My fingers tightened around the keys in my hand until they dug into my skin. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask, when did it become my job to reward laziness? When did his comfort matter more than my effort? More than everything I've done for this family? But I didn't. I opened the trunk, closed it, maybe a little harder than necessary, and got in the driver's seat. The ride to the port was suffocatingly quiet, except for Daniel, of course. "Oh man, I saw a YouTube vlog about this cruise," he said, leaning forward between the seats. "There's this crazy water slide on the ship, and all-you-can-eat sushi. Think it's included?" "Yeah," Dad chimed in. "Hope we can snag some good spots for the excursions. You booked all that, right, Mandy?" I bit the inside of my cheek. "Yeah, I did." Mom nodded like everything was perfectly normal. "See? It's fine. It'll be a fun trip. No need for drama." I glanced at them in the rearview mirror. No need for drama. Sure. Just replace your daughter with your son on the trip she paid for without even telling her until the morning of departure. No drama at all. When we finally pulled into the port parking lot, my stomach was in knots. The ship towered over us, sleek, massive, dazzling under the morning sun. I should have felt proud, excited. Instead, I felt hollow. I stepped out and helped unload the bags. My parents barely seemed to notice the tension radiating off me like a furnace. "Thank you for understanding, sweetheart," Mom said, giving me an airy little hug. "You're always so mature about these things." Mature. Right. Daniel hoisted his backpack over one shoulder and grinned as he headed toward the terminal. "Appreciate it, sis. You're the best." I stood there watching them walk away. Their figures grew smaller as they disappeared through the doors leading to the check-in. A part of me wanted to cry, but a bigger part of me, the part that had been ignored, dismissed, and shoved aside one too many times, started to simmer. No, Mandy, not this time. I pulled out my phone, opened my travel app, and stared at the reservation. A single thought echoed in my head. If I'm not on that cruise, then neither are they. And that was the moment everything changed. I sat there in my car, staring at the terminal doors long after they disappeared inside. My fingers hovered over my phone screen, heart pounding so hard it felt like it echoed in my ears. Part of me thought, "Don't do it, Mandy. Just let it go. Be the bigger person. Again." But another part, the part that had been trampled, dismissed, and pushed aside for years, snapped back louder. "No, not this time." I opened the reservation app I'd used to book the cruise. My thumb trembled as I scrolled through the itinerary. Balcony suites, premium excursions, private dining packages. All of it. Booked under my name, my credit card, my effort, my sacrifice. And yet, they'd tossed me aside like I was an afterthought. Like I was the optional child. I hovered over the Manage Booking button, clicked it. My thumb rested over Cancel Reservation. A lump rose in my throat. Not sadness. No, not anymore. It was anger. Clean, sharp, righteous. They didn't even ask me. They didn't even have the decency to tell me until I was standing in their driveway with the engine running. I gritted my teeth and hit cancel. One confirmation screen popped up. "Are you sure you want to cancel your reservation for the Panama Canal 7-night luxury cruise?" "Yes, absolutely." Another tap. Done. Almost instantly, the confirmation email hit my inbox. "Your cruise reservation has been canceled. A full refund will be issued within 3 to 5 business days." I sat there for a moment, breathing, processing. Then, just for good measure, I opened the excursion portal. Private rainforest tour? Canceled. VIP whale watching trip? Canceled. Chef's table dinner experience? Gone. All of it. I sat back in my seat, staring at the ship in the distance. Funny how it looked different now. Less like a dream, and more like a symbol of everything I was done tolerating. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. And again. I glanced at the screen. Dad, then Mom, then Daniel. I let it ring out, watched it go to voicemail, and not a minute later, then came the texts. "Mom, Mandy, something's wrong. Our check-in isn't working. Did you mess up the reservation?" Dad, "Call us. Now." Daniel, "Real mature, Mandy. You better fix this. They're saying there's no booking." A bitter laugh escaped me. "Oh, now you need me?" I waited, let the calls pile up. Then curiosity got the better of me, and I picked up the next call. The moment I answered, my mom's voice hit me like a lightning bolt. "Mandy, what is going on? The front desk says there's no reservation under our name. They've checked 3 times. Did you book it wrong?" I bit back a smile. "No, Mom, I didn't book it wrong." A pause. "Well then what is this? Where's the reservation?" I leaned back in my seat, tapping my fingers against the steering wheel. "It's canceled." Silence. Dead silence. Then, an explosion. What do you mean canceled? Why would you do that? We're standing here. This is so embarrassing. I shrugged, even though she couldn't see it. Well, it didn't make sense to keep paying for a trip I wasn't invited to. I could hear Dad's voice in the background, sharp, frustrated. Ask her if she can fix it. Tell her to call someone. Mom hissed, "Just fix it, Mandy." We don't have time for this. I let out a small, humorless chuckle. Fix it? Oh no, I'm not your fixer anymore. Daniel's voice broke through next, loud enough to be heard over the speaker. You are so petty. Seriously? You're ruining everything. Just admit you overreacted and book it back. I stared out at the water, the massive cruise ship in the distance starting to pull away from the dock. Slowly. Majestically. Right on schedule. I smiled. Can't. The ship's leaving. As if on cue, the long blast of the ship's horn echoed through the air. Mom gasped. Mandy, you didn't... Yup? I interrupted. I did. You've embarrassed us in front of everyone. Your father is furious. Daniel is humiliated. How could you do this to us? I closed my eyes and breathed in the salty ocean air. No, Mom. The question is, how could you do this to me? Silence. For the first time in probably my entire life, they had nothing to say. Good luck figuring it out, I said calmly. Enjoy your vacation. Oh, wait. And with that, I hung up. For a long moment, I sat there, quiet. Then, for the first time in years, I laughed. By the time I pulled back into my driveway, my phone was already blowing up. Voicemails, texts, missed calls. I didn't even bother listening to the voicemails yet. I just tossed the phone face down onto the kitchen counter, walked over to the coffee machine, and hit brew. As the coffee trickled into the pot, the adrenaline started wearing off. My hands were shaking, not from regret, but from something else. Relief, for the first time in, I don't even know how long. I'd stood up for myself. No frantic apologies, no bending over backward, no swallowing hurt just to keep the peace. I finally said, enough. But of course they wouldn't accept that easily. The moment I sat down at the kitchen table with my coffee, the phone started buzzing again. Relentless. Like mosquitoes you just couldn't swat away. I glanced at the screen. Daniel. Ignored. Then Dad. Then Mom. Then Daniel again. I sighed and finally opened the text thread, just to see. Mom, you've gone too far. This is unacceptable. We are stranded here with no hotel, no cruise, and no backup. Fix this now. Daniel. Wow. Seriously, Mandy, this is next level petty. Do you have any idea how much you've embarrassed us? You better be joking. Book it back. Dad. You need to call the cruise line and fix this. We are beyond disappointed. I never thought you'd stoop this low. A bitter laugh escaped me. Oh, I'm the problem now? When they told me, on the morning of departure, that I was no longer invited on the trip I planned, paid for, and organized, that was fine. But canceling it? Suddenly I was the villain. I let out a long breath, grabbed my phone, and hit play on the first voicemail. It was Mom, her voice frantic. Mandy, call me back right now. This is ridiculous. They're saying we don't have a room at the hotel either. The cruise is gone, the hotel is gone, the excursions are gone. What did you do? Fix it. Next voicemail. Dad. More restrained but furious underneath. Mandy, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is not okay. This is not how we treat family. I rolled my eyes. Funny. I was just thinking the same thing. Then Daniel's voicemail. Get over yourself. You ruined everything. You're acting like a child. I swear when I see you next... I deleted it before he finished. I sat there for a minute, staring at the wall, letting the ridiculousness of it all settle in. Was this really happening? Number correction. Was I really, finally, done? I stood up, paced the living room, then came back and stared at my phone again. Half of me wanted to turn it off, throw it in a drawer, forget about it. But the other half wanted to answer. And when Dad's name flashed across the screen for the third time in 2 minutes, I picked up. Mandy. He barked before I could even say hello. This has gone far enough. What you did is completely unacceptable. Your mother is in tears. Daniel is furious. You've ruined our anniversary. You need to call the cruise line immediately. No. Silence. What? No, I repeated slowly. Calm. Steady. I'm not fixing it. I'm not doing anything. I could hear him spluttering on the other end. Mandy, this is insane. You're punishing the whole family over a misunderstanding? I nearly choked. A misunderstanding? You replaced me. On my own gift. You looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't going because Daniel needed rest. We thought you'd understand. He snapped back. You're always the reasonable one. The mature one. You work so much. You said yourself how busy you are all the time. I gritted my teeth. Yeah, I work because no one hands me things. Unlike Daniel. His voice dropped lower, threatening. This isn't like you, Mandy. You've always been the one who holds this family together. I let out a bitter laugh. Exactly. I'm the one who holds everything together. Plans the trips, pays for the dinners, solves the problems, covers for everyone's mistakes. You've just been so comfortable with me being the responsible one that you forgot something? I don't have to. Silence. Complete silence. Then quietly he said, I can't believe you'd do this. To your own family. On our anniversary. Yeah? I snapped. Well, I can't believe my family would look me in the face on the morning of a trip I planned and say, You're not coming. He didn't respond, just a strained sigh. Figure it out, I said, lowering my voice, sharper now. You wanted to take Daniel instead of me? Then you figure out the hotel. You figure out the excursions. You figure out the cruise. Without me. For once. And before he could reply, I hung up. I tossed the phone onto the couch, my hands trembling. Not from fear. Not from guilt. But from adrenaline. A kind I wasn't used to. The adrenaline of standing up for myself. I sank into the couch, breathing hard, as the weight of what just happened finally settled over me. They were stranded. No cruise, no hotel, no backup plans. For the first time ever, they were the ones left scrambling. Not me. A smile crept across my face. Not my problem. The rest of that day felt quiet. Eerily quiet. No buzzing phone. No guilt-laced texts. No passive-aggressive voicemails. For the first time in years, I had turned my phone off. I made myself lunch. Watched a random cooking show I never had time for. Even pulled out an old jigsaw puzzle from the closet that had gathered dust for months. It was strange. This sense of peace. Strange, but good. And yet beneath the calm, I could feel it. The simmering tension. The storm waiting to hit. Because my family? Oh, they didn't give up that easily. By the time the sun began setting, curiosity got the better of me. I walked over to the kitchen counter, picked up my phone, held it in my palm for a moment, then powered it back on. Instant chaos. It was like opening floodgates. 17 missed calls, 43 texts, 6 voicemails. I took a deep breath and scrolled through. Same patterns, same tactics. Mom. Mandy. I don't understand how you could do this. We're your family. We raised you. We deserve better than this humiliation. Daniel. Grow up. You seriously need therapy. You ruined everything. Dad. Call us. Now this is getting ridiculous. And then, Mom. Your father is furious. I hope you're proud of yourself. We're stranded in a cheap motel miles from the port. You've embarrassed us in front of everyone. Daniel. I swear when we get back, we're gonna have a serious talk. You're a toxic person, Mandy. I had to laugh. Me? Toxic? I shook my head, dropped the phone face down again, and made myself a cup of tea. For years, I'd been on the receiving end of their guilt trips, of their manipulation disguised as family duty or being the bigger person. But now the guilt trip hit different, because I didn't feel guilty, not even a little. About an hour later, the phone rang again. This time, I picked up. It was Mom. Her voice came through, tight, brittle, like she was forcing herself to sound composed. Mandy, listen, we've had some time to think, and we realized that maybe things could have been handled better. I raised an eyebrow. Could have been handled better? She sighed. Look, we didn't mean to hurt you. We were trying to do what was best for Daniel. He's been struggling, you know that. Right, I said flatly. And I'm always the one expected to sacrifice. Again. No one asked you to sacrifice anything. She snapped back, the composure starting to crack. You're always working anyway. We thought you wouldn't mind giving this one thing to your brother. I nearly dropped the phone. Giving this one thing? Mom, it wasn't yours to give. This wasn't some spare pair of shoes. This was a cruise I spent 2 years planning and paying for. Silence. Look. She tried again, voice softer now. You made your point. But now, it's gone too far. Your father is furious. Daniel is devastated. We've had to book this terrible motel. Not my problem. Mandy. No. I cut her off. You made your choice, Mom. You decided that Daniel deserved this more than I did. So now, you can figure it out. You can figure out the hotel, the excursions, the cruise. Just like I always have. Her voice dropped into that guilt-ridden whisper I knew all too well. I just don't understand how you can be so cruel. To your own family. I clenched my jaw. No, Mom. The real question is, how could you be so cruel to me? The silence was heavy, uncomfortable. She didn't have an answer. She never did when the mirror got held up to her face. After a few seconds, she mumbled, Well, I hope you're happy, because you've ruined our anniversary. I took a deep breath. Calm, controlled. No, Mom, I didn't ruin your anniversary. You did. And I hung up. The following day was quiet again. No calls, no texts, nothing. It was tempting to wonder if maybe they finally got it, if maybe they finally realized the line they'd crossed. But by noon, reality came knocking. A call from Dad. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. I answered. His tone was different. Not angry, not yelling, just tired, defeated. Mandy, he started, sighing heavily. Your mother and we've been talking. We think maybe we made a mistake. My heart thudded, but I kept my voice steady. Maybe? He groaned. Look, this has gotten out of hand. We didn't mean to hurt you, but Daniel, he's just, you know how he is. Yes, I said dryly. I know exactly how he is. He doesn't handle stress well. He needed a break. I leaned back, biting my tongue to stop from laughing. And I'm the one who has to lose my vacation because of that? Dad sighed again. You've always been the strong one, Mandy. The reliable one. We thought you'd understand. There it was. The oldest line in their book. You're the strong one. The responsible one. The mature one. So be the one who sacrifices. Again. I do understand, I said coldly. I understand perfectly now. Look, Dad tried again. We're willing to talk about this when we get home. We'll figure something out. I smirked. Yeah? You do that. And I hung up. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little bit. 3 days passed. 3 days of silence. Not a single call. Not one text. Nothing. It was weird, but not unwelcome. Honestly, I needed it. For the first time in years, I had actual space to breathe. to think, to process everything. I didn't realize how heavy the weight of always being the fixer was until I set it down. But deep down, I knew the silence wouldn't last. It never did with my family. And right on cue, on the fourth day, my phone lit up with a message from Dad. "We're back. Come by the house. We need to talk." No apology, no explanation. Just, we need to talk. A few months ago, that would have sent me into an anxiety spiral. Stomach knots, sweaty palms, rehearsing every possible conversation in my head. But not this time. This time, I felt something else. Something sharper, stronger, readiness. I sipped my coffee, set the cup down, grabbed my keys, and drove over. As I pulled into their driveway, a wave of memories hit me. Family barbecues, birthday parties, late nights helping Dad fix the gutters, Christmas mornings on this very porch. But now, it all felt different. Like I was stepping onto a stage I no longer belonged to. Or maybe didn't want to belong to anymore. The front door swung open before I even knocked. There stood Mom, arms crossed, face tight. Behind her, Dad sat on the couch, looking more worn out than angry this time. And Daniel, flopped in the armchair like he had zero shame about anything that happened. I stepped inside. Quiet, calm, observing. "Sit," Mom said sharply, motioning to the chair across from them. I didn't. I stayed standing. "So," I started, folding my arms. "What exactly did you want to talk about?" Mom jumped right in. "We think it's time we move past. Whatever this was. You've made your point." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Have I?" Dad sighed. "Look, Mandy, we all made mistakes. Things were said. Done. But this grudge, it's hurting the whole family." A laugh bubbled out of me. Not forced, not bitter. Just disbelief. "A grudge? Is that what we're calling it now?" Daniel scoffed. "Yeah, you completely overreacted. Seriously, it was one trip. Get over yourself." And there it was. The golden child energy, fully intact. "One trip?" I echoed. "Do you honestly think this is about one trip?" Daniel rolled his eyes. "Yeah, actually." I shook my head. "Of course you do." Then I turned to my parents. "Do you two honestly believe this was just about the cruise?" Silence. I stepped forward. This wasn't about 1 week on a ship. This was about years. Years of me showing up, paying for things, solving problems, being the reliable one. While you made excuse after excuse for him. While you overlooked me, ignored me, took me for granted. Dad opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. "You didn't just replace me on a trip. You replaced me in this family dynamic a long time ago. That cruise was just the moment I finally saw it for what it was." Mom's arms dropped to her sides. "Mandy, that's not fair." "No, Mom," I said, voice sharp but steady. "What's not fair is spending 2 years saving, planning, paying for a trip, only to show up and be told I'm not going, because Daniel, it needed rest." I turned to Daniel. "Rest from what exactly? From your exhausting career of sleeping till noon?" Daniel's face went red. "Wow, real mature." "Oh, please," I shot back. "Mature? You've lived your entire adult life off of everyone else's labor. You don't get to lecture me about maturity." Dad stood, hands raised. "Okay, that's enough." "No," I interrupted. "It's not enough, not yet." I let my eyes scan the room. All of them. "I'm done being your fixer, your planner, your backup wallet, your afterthought. I'm done." Mom's voice cracked. "Mandy, we didn't realize how much this hurt you." I sighed. "That's the problem, Mom. You never realized. Not until it affected you. Not until the hotel told you there was no room. Not until you stood at that port with no cruise to board. You only notice when I stop doing." Dad sat back down heavily. "So what? You're just cutting us off now?" I shook my head. But there are boundaries now. Clear ones. If you want me in your lives, it's going to be on different terms. My terms. Daniel scoffed. Oh, please, like we care. I turned to him, smiling. Oh, I know you care. You just don't want to admit it. But deep down, you all know. Your safety net just walked out that door. I grabbed my purse, turned toward the door, and before stepping out, added one final line. Enjoy figuring things out for yourselves. I've got a life to live. And with that, I walked out. The drive home felt different, lighter. There was no tightness in my chest. No spinning thoughts trying to figure out what I should have said or done. No guilt, no second guessing. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't leaving their house feeling small. I was leaving it free. I pulled into my driveway, turned off the engine, and just sat there for a moment, letting it sink in. I did it. I finally stood up for myself. No yelling, no tears, just clear boundaries, firm director. And the best part? I didn't regret a single word. That evening, I made myself a simple dinner, poured a glass of wine, and sat out on the back porch. The sun was setting, casting everything in soft gold. It felt symbolic somehow, like the end of one chapter and the start of something entirely new. I opened my laptop, almost on autopilot. Stared at the screen for a minute. Then, without even thinking, I typed into the search bar. Last-minute solo cruises. Because here's the thing. That cruise wasn't just for them. It was supposed to be for me too. An adventure, a celebration, a reward for working hard, for showing up, for never quitting. And just because they didn't value me didn't mean I had to follow their lead. It didn't take long to find one. A 10-day Caribbean and Central America cruise departing in 4 days. Balcony room available. Private excursions still open. Perfect. Without hesitation, I clicked Book Now, paid, confirmed. And as the confirmation email popped into my inbox, something strange happened. I smiled. Not a forced smile. Not a pretend everything's fine smile. A real one. The next few days were a whirlwind. I packed, bought a new swimsuit, grabbed a journal from the bookstore. And the entire time, silence. No calls, no texts. Nothing from my parents or Daniel. Not an apology. Not an explanation. But you know what? That silence didn't bother me anymore. It felt like peace. The morning of departure, I stood at the dock with my suitcase in hand. The ship loomed in front of me. Massive, beautiful, inviting. This time, I wasn't watching someone else board. This time, it was me. Check-in was seamless. The staff welcomed me like royalty. By noon, I was standing on my private balcony, watching the port shrink into the distance as the ship slowly pulled away. I took a deep breath, letting the sea air fill my lungs. Freedom. The next 10 days were everything I didn't know I needed. Snorkeling in crystal clear waters, ziplining through lush rainforests, private cooking classes in Costa Rica, quiet mornings on the balcony with coffee, watching the sunrise over the ocean. No stress, no obligations, no family drama. Just me, existing, living, breathing, thriving. I met people, other solo travelers, people who weren't weighed down by guilt or expectations, people who laughed easily, who asked questions like, "What's your favorite place you've ever traveled?" instead of, "Why aren't you helping your family more?" It was refreshing. It reminded me that there was a whole world beyond being the family's fixer. A whole world where I could simply be Mandy. One evening, near the end of the cruise, I sat alone at a little table on the top deck, watching the sunset melt into the horizon. I opened my journal, the one I'd barely written in back home because every page felt like another chore. But now, the words flowed easily. Stop shrinking yourself to fit spaces you've outgrown. Being the strong one doesn't mean being the sacrificial one. It's okay to choose yourself. I smiled reading that last line. It's okay to choose yourself. Somewhere along the line, I'd been taught that choosing myself was selfish. that sacrificing was the price of love, that my worth came from what I could give, not who I was. But none of that was true. Not anymore. When I got home, I half expected to find a barrage of texts or missed calls. But there was nothing. A few days passed. Then a single text from Mom. "Hope you had a nice trip. Maybe we can talk soon." No apology. No accountability. Just polite words on a screen. I stared at it for a while, then locked my phone and set it aside. Maybe. Maybe we can talk. When I'm ready. On my terms. In the weeks that followed, I made more changes. I signed up for a photography class I'd always put off. Started going on weekend hikes. Booked a second solo trip for next year, this time to Greece. I even rearranged my living room, replacing the old furniture my parents had given me years ago with pieces that felt more like me. Every small change felt like peeling back the layers of who I'd been told to be, and uncovering the person I'd always been underneath. The truth is, this story doesn't end with some magical family reconciliation. It doesn't end with them suddenly understanding everything or apologizing in the way I used to dream they would. But it does end with something better. It ends with me finally realizing I was never the problem. I was simply someone who finally learned to choose herself. And freedom? It looks really, really good on me.